Welcome to the first edition of Tribe Talk here, and Damon Helgevold, the voice of the Indians, talking with the new head football coach of the Clarke Indians. That is Duane Matthess. Coach, thanks for joining us here on this segment, and we're looking forward to seeing what you and your crew can do.
Hey, well, I appreciate you being here and taking on the job of the voice of the Indians, Damon. And it's awesome that you're a part of it, being a former alumni, and I know that you have a great respect for this school and our athletic program. So it's great to have you a part of it.
I'm looking forward to working with you throughout the season, working with your players as well, and the entire coaching staff, seeing what you guys can bring to the table and watching the progress that you guys have done so far this year has been huge in that aspect of it. Tell us a little bit about your background, what you have done in the past, where you've come from, and how you got to Osceola.
Sure. Well, originally, actually, I kind of took the long way around to becoming an educator. I worked in actually the medical field for about 10 years while I was coaching, what I refer to as a street coach. When you're not actually in the school building, you're just coming in and coaching the kids. And I actually just kind of came home one day. I was working at the VA hospital in Iowa City, and told my wife, I said, hey, I think I want to go back to school to be a teacher. And she's like, well, that sounds great, but how can we make that happen, with 4 kids and, having to, pay for bills and all that kind of stuff. And, but, we got by kind of a little bit of robbing Peter to pay Paul a little bit, to get those bills paid while we were down on one income while I was back in school. But got it accomplished and graduated in December from Mount Mercy University in Cedar Rapids. Then it pretty much was a thing of a little short stop, quick stop in Denison, where I was teaching for the last half part of the school year. And then once this job opened up and interviewed and was accepted, the position for social studies as well as head football and head track coach, boys track coach. But prior to this, I've been coaching for I think this will be my 13th season coaching. I've was a head coach at Springville High School, which is a Class A school outside Cedar Rapids. Was there for a season, but also was a defensive coordinator prior to coming to Osceola. Here at Clarke, I was the defensive coordinator at Center Point Urbana, which is a 3A school outside of Cedar Rapids. So kind of been on both sides of the ball for us. I'll be head coach, but also call the offense as well.
And looking forward to seeing that. And you came here with pretty much everything had to be brand new, brought into the table this year, and first time in the area. What was your thoughts when you came to the school for the first time?
Well, I grew up in a town like this. I grew up in Tipton, Iowa, which is a town that's, they're a 1A school in some sports or 2A in some. But the town is right around 3,000 people. Osceola is bigger than Tipton, but very similar in the sense of strong ties to the community. Very it's a rural community, much like Osceola. But that was kind of to be honest with you, that was kind of an attractor to me. It was something that I felt like would be a great place to raise my kids. I wanted to get them into a smaller school setting. And just walking and driving around town, I love this, love the square. Love the fact that the Amtrak comes through here. Especially since it goes out to Denver. I can just hop on that and take it out to Denver and not have to worry about staying awake or anything like that. Someone else drives for you. So there's a lot of strong ties business-wise. Osceola Foods is not going anywhere. So it's not like it's a town that could be dying in the sense of, like businesses are leaving the area to go to like Des Moines or other bigger towns or something like that. So, I felt like the community was strong.
Yeah, you talked about being a family guy and talking about how you've got 4 kids. Tell us a little bit about the family and,
Sure.
and the family you brought to Osceola.
Well, my wife, she works for Osceola Dental Care. Her name is Sarah. She's a dental assistant. She's been doing that for almost 20 years. So she works with Dr. Stark there, and Dr. Stark is actually an alumni of Clarke here, so that's great to have that connection. And then my two older kids actually live with their mom in Cedar Rapids, and so I just see them just on the weekends and during the summer and stuff like that. But my two young ones my start with the oldest one is Tavius, and then my second oldest is Tate. They're the ones that live in Cedar Rapids. And then my two youngest ones, we have Isabel, who will be 7 in November, and Landon, he just turned 4 in August. So I have a first grader and a preschooler, and they're very excited to get started with their classes and stuff come fall, and meet meet their classmates, and they both go out to the village, and so they've kind of got to meet some people that they possibly could be going to classes with or school with or whatnot. So they're very excited to be here as well. So it's great seeing them in their new Clarke gear too.
How has the transition to Osceola been for you and the family? Pretty seamless?
Yeah, it's great that we're living in a place that's just a couple blocks away from the high school, so it's nice that we have I can just be up here in like 2 minutes kind of deal if something needs need to meet someone, or get up here for weights in the morning and stuff like that. So it's nice to be so close, and my wife and I have never lived in a town that we haven't had to drive to, in the sense to, like, when I was student teaching in Center Point, Urbana, that was like a 20-25 minute drive, or even just across town to Marion could turn into a half-hour drive in Cedar Rapids. We can both get to our jobs within 5 minutes, and that's outstanding for both of us.
Moving now to the football side of things, and Coach, you guys bring in pretty much a different look team, a little bit smaller than what you'd probably imagine you'd like to see coming in. But tell us a little bit about some of the starting things, starting off with the off-season programs and that Simpson camp right out of the way.
Yeah, our numbers right now are going to probably be around 40, 9th through 12th, or give or take a few. And we had 17 players go up to Simpson. A couple of those players that weren't there with us aren't going to be with us during the regular season, and that's totally fine. That's their choice. It doesn't make them bad kids or anything like that. It's just they're going their path, and we're going to continue on ours, and I wish them nothing but the best. From looking back at last year's team, the offensive starters and defensive starters, you're going to see some new names in there. But I'm excited about that because, as the way I look at it, it's this is our program now, and it kind of gives us a way to put a stamp on it. And I was really happy with the way things progressed at Simpson into the first week of camp, and it seems like some of those kids that were there retained that information that they learned at Simpson. And I'm looking at it from an offensive standpoint, since I call the offense, but we had a lot of that second day of offensive practice was really, really sharp and crisp, and so that was really, you always kind of judge, as a coach, the improvements from game 1 to game 2. Well, it almost can be said the same thing from day 1 to day 2 of offense or defense,
right.
In that second day, to see if you've retained it and we're able to absorb it, and hopefully, I always tell our kids is make new mistakes. And the reason I say make new mistakes is because it shows that you're learning from those mistakes that you made, instead of just not thinking about it and processing it and just making those same mistakes over and over again.
And tell us a little bit about the camp and the Simpson camp itself, and how you guys kind of got into it, some of the things you accomplished while you were up there.
Well, we weren't going to go there to start off. They had a team drop out, and they had an opening, and so they called and asked if we'd be interested, and we were able to, I put it out to our guys, and they said that they would be interested in going, so we made it happen. And it's always, those situations are always a little bit different because it's the first time that you're throwing on pads and you haven't even practiced really as a team. And so it can be somewhat of a crapshoot in the sense of you don't know what's going to happen. But I think at first, because we scrimmaged Marion and they're a 3A school, they're going to be a very good school, a program. This coming fall, I expect them to probably be a playoff team, and I think some of the kids' eyes were opened up. You can say just in the sense of, whoa, this isn't this is a different level than they've probably been used to a little bit in the past. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, I mean, I'm very much of the mentality of iron sharpens iron, and so we're only going to get better if we play or practice against teams that are better than us.
Yep.
And so, that gives us a level where we want to get to.
Yep. You talked a lot about the camp and some of the things, and the first thing that you implemented when you came here was we're going to get the off-season program started early and and started often. Talk a little bit about your off-season program, your weight sessions, your programs as far as that goes. You guys have done a great job keeping those that have bought into you already, keeping them intact, and then bringing in some newer guys as well.
Yeah. Every solid program out there has a basis in strength and conditioning, as well as, like a speed school or speed and agility school or something like that. And so we lift 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and we actually have 2 different sessions, a 7 and an 8:30 session. And we don't ask a whole lot of time from the kids, an hour, is what it comes down to every day. And, so really 5 hours a week. And so they lift on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Then we have a speed school, 1 session on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And, it was really good to see, at first it was kind of, there was, like 7 kids, at first. I mean, but then more and more, and it was a rough transition in the sense of, I didn't get hired until late. I didn't get here actually in Osceola until June 1st. And we literally started lifting like June 2nd.
Right.
So, I mean, I think once I got here and was able to make contact with players and see them in the weight room, then word started to kind of spread like wildfire. And then next thing you know, we started having other athletes, volleyball or softball players coming in, or basketball players coming in and lifting. And I'm more than happy to work with those. As far as I'm concerned, they're all student athletes, and I'm not just training football players.
Right.
That's not my mindset right now. It was great to see them, and I think we just remaxed, and we saw a lot of players that made some gains during the summer. Now, the important thing is once you make those gains, let's not stop making those gains. So they still have to, and that's why as a football program, we'll still lift throughout the season. And, I encourage those guys who aren't playing football, that are maybe playing basketball or volleyball or basketball or whatever, is to continue to lift during during your sports season, so you don't lose those gains. Because, what's the point of putting all that work in there if you just let it fall to the wayside?
And you guys have gotten like you said, the numbers have come up from 7 from the first week. You guys bring in a lot more kids. How do you think the kids have taken to your style of off-season work and playing and keeping them honest?
Well, I think, they, at first I think it was kind of a little bit like, well,
Yes.
just because they haven't been used to, me, asking them, not telling them that they need, because, weightlifting during the summer is not mandatory, but obviously I feel that there's a lot of positives that come out of the people that come in here and put in the work. And I wouldn't push it so hard if I didn't believe in it. And, I think they haven't been used to having a coach ask them, like, hey, why aren't you at lifting?
Right.
Not like, hey, you need to be at lifting, but hey, what happened, Damon? Why weren't you at lifting today?
Right.
And having to ask and having to answer for that kind of deal. And so I think maybe some of them I just kind of finally beat down. Okay, he's going to keep asking me. I'll just start showing up, kind of deal. But the reason I ask is because I care. I care about how good these players can be and our students to be, not just, out on the football field, but, how it can help basketball or baseball or whatever the sport they're playing. And so that's why I ask. And, if I see someone out in the town, up at Iron Horse or even in Walmart or Hy-Vee or whatever, Fairway, and, hey, how's it going, Johnny? Haven't seen you in the weight room for a while. Oh, yeah, I mean, they'll come up with something. I mean, but I'm going to ask you. I mean, so, because I want them to know I want them there. And not just because I want them there, because I want them to get better. So.
You guys bring in a similar staff to last year and past years as well. You bring in a lot of guys that have returned, and you kind of have set in and said, hey, here's my game plan as far as that. Talk about your staff, talk about your coaching staff that has worked with this team that you guys have built in the offseason workouts and now trying to implement it here in the first week of practice.
Yeah, I really am happy with my coaching staff that I have here. I mean, I think they have just needed kind of that structure and leadership at the top and to kind of bring out some of the things that they possess. And besides myself, as the head coach, we have an offensive coordinator. We have Brian Reese, who's a tremendous defensive coordinator. I mean, his right hand is probably smarter than my whole brain. But so he is and he's going to also work with our wide receivers and linebackers. And so I'm very excited that he has continued to be on staff. Our varsity offensive line coaches are Jeff Beener and Kyle Eckerman. Kyle is new to the staff this year, but he's been a teacher here in the district. He's the former head boys track coach who's now the head girls track coach. So kids are very familiar with him as well. And then we also have Robert Best, who is another one. He's our running backs and our inside linebacker coach. And then we also have Craig Wozniewski, Coach Wiz. So he's also works with our wide receivers as well as our defensive line. So Coach Beener is actually going to be our head freshman coach, and Coach Wiz will actually call the defense for the freshmen. So we're real happy with that. And, we do have a really talented freshman class, so I kind of consider them like, the babies,
right.
So I'm entrusting them and I think those guys will do an excellent job getting those guys coached up and ready for, varsity football in the next coming years. So, but we're not going to do a JV schedule this year. That's something that you're getting breaking news here, man. So, I hope you have that little thing that you can introduction, for the breaking news on this. But I just talked to Mr. Johnson, and we're not going to do a JV schedule this year. We're just going to do a freshman with some sophomores down there, helping out the freshmen to kind of beef up that squad a little bit in the sense that numbers-wise, because I would rather keep those freshmen playing down there with mostly freshmen than have them move up and play a JV schedule and no freshman schedule. So I think that's going to play dividends for us in the long run and get those guys some confidence. So when they continue on to their 10th grade and 11th grade and finally by the time they're seniors, hopefully you'll see that pay off.
And keeping on the line with the staff and talking about them, how is their knowing of the kids, knowing who should be out, who should be going to certain things and stuff like that, how has their knowing of the kids helped you get to know them a little bit better and figure out who should go where?
Well, to be honest with you, Damon, I've talked to our coaches prior to coming here about certain kids where, position-wise, what they think of them, work ethic, all those kinds of things. And I listened to them, but, and I told my whole staff, I said, look, I understand you have your opinions of such and such kid or such and such kid, but I really want to form my own opinions as well, too, to see how they, because everyone had a blank slate going into the summer. Let's see who's coming in the weight room. Let's see who's putting in the work, trying to get better and trying to make themselves better. And so, I kind of went off that. But regardless, talking with them from last year, there's a lot of things that weren't happening in our program that just most programs just do, like practice schedules.
Right.
And and so that the structure, I think, is light years ahead of where we were in the past. And one thing that I've challenged our coaches when we were at Simpson is, I told them, I said, I'm going to challenge you guys to coach your butts off, in the sense of, we're just not in a position team-wise to not coach up our players after every single rep in practice, or when we're scrimmaging someone. There's someone that we can be talking to and saying, like, whether they didn't take the right step, they took a misstep or something, or a false step, and or they got their head on the wrong side, or they didn't get to the right position in the strike point. I go, so we can talk to them after every single rep, and that's something that I'm constantly telling our coaches as a challenge. Like, look, we need to be doing that, because we're just not good enough to just rest on our laurels and not be coaching them. So, and they've accepted that challenge wholeheartedly, and so I'm really proud of them for doing that, because it's kind of been, I think, a little bit of a different mindset than how things have been handled in the past.
Throwing a curveball at them kind of gets them on their toes and wants them to rework and relearn the new stuff as well. How have they taken liking to the way that you've brought in some new things, and obviously your own taste of Clarke football?
Yeah, so far everyone's been really, really perceptive and really, just, and I'm not a micromanager of my coaches. So, from the get-go, I've told them, I said, look, you are the head coach of your position. I'm going to defer to you instead of, trump you kind of deal. And so I want them to take ownership of it and know what, they're supposed to know. And that's why, one of the first meetings we sat down and had with my staff, I said, these are the things I need you to learn. I'm not going to micromanage you and look over your shoulders to make sure you're learning them. I'll be able to tell if you haven't taken it in and learned it when we start practice, obviously. But, we've done a really great job of all communicating to each other. And I think that's the biggest thing, where you get into some staffs who don't do a good job of communicating. And the next thing you know is, one coach feels like they're having to pick up the slack or another one, and then, there gets dissension in the staff. But we haven't had anything like that, and it's been really great to work with these guys so far, and I'm excited to kind of get rolling here with our season.
And that season pretty much starts this week. You get Monday practice, first week out of the gate, first week. How's that going to be to get everyone together and ready to go and get them geared up for what's to come this 2017 year?
Yeah, it's funny. It's camp is camp, and you feel like, it's there, and we had a great camp, and we ended it great with the Marines came and worked out our kids, and we tested them, put them through some adversity, and challenged them. And I told them, I said, look, you're going to be challenged, and I think they thought that the Marines were just going to kind of come there and give them this little motivational talk and say, hey, go try hard kind of deal. And next thing you know, they got Marines screaming at them and trying and putting them through some intense situations, but I wanted to see how our kids reacted. Yep. And, I thought they passed with flying colors, in the sense of there were some players I thought may quit and walk off, but they didn't. And so that was really, really a proud moment to see them do that. I call it kind of like a program changing moment. In the sense of, these are kind of the things that, Clarke football is going to stand for now, and is going to embody. And and then afterwards we had a pool party over at the aquatic center, and the kids, got to, jump in the pool and relax. And I think some of them were playing like Marco Polo, and, but I encouraged our coaching staff to bring their kids and their wives, and make it we're a football family, and so that was really great to see. But today's the first official day of practice, August 7th. So we'll start out wearing helmets for the first 3 days, and then we'll go into just shells, our shoulder pads and helmets, and for 2 days, and then for Saturday we have a scrimmage. So against our own team, an intra squad scrimmage, but. That's our first full contact day. Right. So, it's going to, and then the following week is a scrimmage week.
Yeah.
We scrimmage at I-35 on Friday.
Yep.
I mean, but we're going to treat that essentially like a game week. You know what I mean? The way that we approach our week. And then the third week, Sadell, right here at Clarke Field. So, I mean, it's crazy how fast this is moving along. I mean, we waited all summer for this day to get here, and it's finally here, and I'm just like, whoa, I mean, it's going to be here before you know it.
Camp week is done, and we kind of had the opportunity now to look back at camp week, see what has progressed, some of the different things you guys have done there as far as that goes, and some kids that kind of have stood out to you during camp week. We'll talk about those coming up, but take us through camp week, starting back, and tell us some of the things you guys kind of wanted to accomplish and accomplish during camp week.
Well, obviously, we wanted to get in a large portion of our offensive plays that we're running. I think it's, and we pretty much have. We've gotten most of our formations in, and most of our plays. Defensively, it's pretty similar to some of the things they've ran in the past, so it hasn't been that huge of a transition for them defensively. Offensively, it's been a little bit more of a struggle earlier on. Now the kids have seemed to pick it up, and so that's really great to see that progression that they've made. But our question will always be, for a little bit, will be our line. Offensive line, defensive line. We have a lot of good skill players here in our program that are capable of either running the football or catching the football or throwing the football. It's just the hogs up front is where it lies. Unfortunately, Damon, we don't have any guys like you and I walking the halls kind of deal. So, but hopefully we're trying to build those players because we have those kids that have that frame. We just need to, get them a little bit stronger and a little bit more, in the sense of they're so young, get them a little bit more mature and developed. So, but I think our passing and our running games are coming along just great. It'll be much different than the Maryland I, which is what they ran in the past. So I'm excited, yet I'm nervous a little bit because it's been a lot for the kids to process. I mean, it's a lot different than what they've ran in the past. So, but they seem very excited about it, and they seem to really embrace what we've been doing.
And you've talked about the change in offense, and that kind of goes on seeing how the kids progress as well. What would you give your camp if you had to give it a letter grade throughout the week and some of the different things, even go day by day and give them letter grades? What would you give camp a full grade of?
Wow, this is a great question. I would probably say right now, if I would, it's too hard to break down by week. I mean, I'd say that first day was an offensive day. I'd say we were actually probably about a C that day. That Tuesday we were a defensive focused practice, and I'd say we were probably around a C plus, B minus area around there. Now that second offensive practice, which would have been that Wednesday, I would have said we were at a B plus with what we retained and how we came back and didn't have a whole lot of mistakes. That Thursday practice was back to defense, and so I'd say we were probably at a B there. We've done pretty well. And that Friday practice, I'd actually give us an A in the sense of due to the Marine Corps that was here and how they persevered and fought through some adversity and so I was really proud of them. So if I had to give an overall grade of the camp, I'd say maybe we're at a B minus.
Okay.
For the camp.
Always good to have something that you can go back on, say, hey, here's what we've done up to this point. Now we can up it the next level, and you guys, and you've done that well. And you talked about the Friday with the Marines. Tell us a little bit about it. What'd you guys do? What'd they put you through?
What didn't they put us through?
Exactly.
That's the question. I mean, I think one of our players, Cole Reese, who's a sophomore, he kind of thought, he's like, the Marines were here. I thought that they would, just kind of come and give us some motivational talk. But before we knew it, they're yelling at us, and he's like, and we're hopping up and answering, their commands back. And next thing you know, we're running, and he's like, I don't even know why we're running, but we're just running. and I'm like, well, that's, the Marine Corps, man, so, but I was just really proud of, again, I think it was such a shock to their system. I don't know, none of those kids have gone through something like that, and I'm sure that the easy thing to do would be walk off the football field and be like, "This is stupid. Why am I doing this?" But none of them did. In the sense, the guys that have been here through the summer, putting in the work. So, and I was proud of that. And and I think, when I was talking to our assistant coaches, they did relays. They were carrying the big poles, and they were, doing basically like military presses with the poles. I mean, switching it from one shoulder to the next. They're, doing locked in, arm in arm with lunges. They were doing, and then they had to build a pull-up bar, and then they had to do 100 pull-ups, as a team in their unit, and then they did an ab workout too. So, and I was talking to our assistant coaches, and I said, 10 years from now, this is the stuff that they're going to remember. Sure, they're going to remember some of their games, or their homecoming or senior night or something like that. But overall, they're not going to remember the whole season. But they'll remember things like that, where they all kind of, bonded together and stuck together and finished it out, gutted it out. And so I was, and I guarantee you, if you ask one of those players 10 years from now, they'll talk about the Marines. So
that was something that a lot of those kids, you can obviously see just on the different social media sites, they're wow, this is pretty cool to see those things. And the question is, did you and the staff get in on any of this stuff too?
No, we stood back and watched. However, and we've been doing, those are nice things that we're doing. But one other thing I'd like to touch on is that next day at 8 o'clock in the morning, there was about 15 of our kids that went out to the village, out at the daycare center here, and helped paint three of their classrooms. And again, the easy thing to do would be to stay in bed, because I'm sure a lot of them were tired. But they came out, and I was out there with them, and we were all painting, and those are the kind of things that I feel like I'm going to remember. I talk about what they're going to remember. Well, those are the things that I'm going to remember, them being selfless and giving of their time and giving back to their community. And it allows me to get to know them outside of the football field or classroom.
Right.
And so it was really special, and I'm really proud of those guys.
How did that, the painting as well as the Marines, kind of build that bond, that family atmosphere just a little bit more?
Absolutely.
Obviously, you guys had something big with that, and teamwork and the family atmosphere will be huge in any sport and any works of life. But when it comes down to a sport like this, when you've got to trust 10 other guys behind you are going to do the same thing or 100% what you are doing as well, it's going to be a little bit different if you don't trust those guys.
Absolutely. I think it was nice to see one of our senior captains out there as well, leading the way. Our senior captains this year will be Nick McVeigh. He's going to be offensively, he'll be a center for us, and then the other senior captain will be Byron Rivera, and he'll play tailback for us, as well as defensive back. And Byron's kind of been, I'd really say, is kind of a Kurt Warner-esque story. As you know, the Pro Football Hall of Fame just happened this last weekend, but Byron actually took a couple years off of football. Played his 8th grade or freshman year, and then he didn't play the last couple years, and he has been committed as anyone to this program over the summer in the weight room and speed school. I just can't say enough nice things about either one of those kids because they're just they've really bought into what we're trying to do here, and as far as I'm concerned, I couldn't have any two better senior leaders than Byron and Nicholas.
And other than your two senior captains that you had just mentioned, who had kind of stood out to you during camp this year that would be, hey, I would take 10 more of those just
Sure.
like that?
Well, I mean, you look at, it doesn't just have to be like upperclassmen. I mean, I think Jake Smith and Chris Carson, a couple freshmen, Tanner Fry, have all really committed themselves during the weight room, and I think you're going to see gains on all their parts, and just better overall athletes. You look at our junior class, John Barron, Riley Domina, Amani Fry, and Fonnie Fry. Those guys are looking really, really sharp so far in camp. And so, as far as I'm concerned, I'm kind of, not to put the pressure on them, but, I'm expecting big things out of those guys.
That'll do it for first edition of Tribe Talk here. Coach Duane Matthess, thanks for spending some time here with us.
You bet. Thanks, Damon.
It's been a pleasure. We'll be back next week. We'll have recap week number 1 of practice. That gets underway starting this afternoon. Can't believe it's right around the corner already, huh?
I know. Looking forward to it.
Tribe Talk week number 1 is in the books. We'll be back next week. Join us for week number 2, Tribe Talk practice number 1 recap.